City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes.
Here.
Alderman Tendam. Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Okay, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the Monday, October 28th, 2013 meeting of the Evanston City Council. I would now like to open the public hearing for the First Amendment to the Howard Hartree TIF District. Per the requirements of the Illinois State Statute to establish or amend a TIF district, a public hearing is a required process. I would ask our TIF consultants, Kane McKenna and Associates, to speak to the city's conformance to the TIF Act.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Just want to indicate that the process that the city has embarked on has started a few months ago and included a series of notices which staff and Kane McKenna had assembled. I just want to summarize those for the record. On August 27th of 2013, notices by regular mail were sent to all the residential addresses within 750 feet of the boundaries of both the existing TIF and the expanded TIF. On August 21st, notices were sent certified mail to the state of Illinois as well as all the taxing districts of record in anticipation of this public hearing. Also notified the districts of the Joint Review Board meeting. The Joint Review Board meeting was then held on September 12th of 2013, in which the city representative Alderman Rainey was present, as well as the high school and several other districts. On October 3rd and October 10th, newspaper notices of this meeting were also published. And October 9th, notices were sent certified mail to the taxpayers of record within the boundaries of the TIF district. So from the standpoint of the notices for this public hearing tonight, that's all been completed as per the statute.
Thank you very much. Next is the report of the Joint Review Board. The Joint Review Board convened on Thursday, September 12th at 3 p.m. here at the Civic Center in room 2200. The meeting was chaired by the current Economic Development Chair, Alderman Rainey. The board agreed with the eligibility findings and redevelopment plan amendments and voted unanimously to recommend to the City Council that they move forward with the First Amendment to the Howard Hartree TIF District. Alderman Rainey, do you have anything to add?
Only, Madam Mayor, that the purpose of extending the TIF has to do with involving the 222 Hartree property that was formerly and currently still known as the old Shore property. The opportunity for economic development at that location, it is an I-2 zone property, and we have an opportunity to retain and expand a business that is currently on Chicago Avenue into that building, and we wanted an opportunity to have other options, and so that is why we are expanding the district. We are not extending the term of the TIF. The TIF will expire in the 23 years as it's planned, and that would be, what is the date?
2015 with a collection in 2016.
Right. So that nothing is changing as far as the district that we established. Was it in 93? 92. So the district, all the terms of the district are the same except for the boundaries.
That is correct.
Thank you, Alderman.
Welcome.
Next is the introduction of written comments. At this time, we will accept any additional written comments from members of the public. Are there any? All right. If there are, clerk, we'll receive them. Next is the TIF overview, a summary of the TIF plan. The economic development staff and the city's TIF consultant will provide an overview of the TIF and eligibility. Johanna?
Good evening, Johanna Neiden, Economic Development Division Manager. I'm just going to give you a brief overview. This is a little bit of what we've already visited So I think our consultant just covered this. This TIF was established in 1992. At the time, it was established to address a closed industrial facility that needed to be redeveloped. It was classified at the time as a blighted area. This is the area that was originally established for the TIF. It's about a 28-acre site. Target is here, Office Max, Best Buy, and Jewel, with several outlots that have not been redeveloped yet. The only piece that we're seeking to add is this piece, the former Sher Brothers facility, not this piece. This is about a 170,000 square foot building that would be added into that. Why the geographic expansion? I think Alderman Rainey just put it quite well. We have an opportunity to redevelop 222 Hartree to retain an existing business in Evanston. Even if that business were not to relocate there, which isn't why I'm saying that, but this expansion of the TIF gives us an opportunity to facilitate any redevelopment in the remaining years of the TIF's life. And it also helps us improve the infrastructure around the shopping center at the rear and help other road and circulation issues that are currently present around the rear of the center. And again, it expires in 2015 with final collection in 2016. To recap, again, the public approval process, this is when I came to you in August, I showed you this chart. We now have 4 X's of completion here with the introduction to hold this public meeting back in August. And now we're here at the public hearing. You will not be asked to take any action tonight, just collect public comment and ask any questions. And then on Monday, November 11th will be the first night that you can take action on this TIF. In the estimated budget, if you've noticed in the packet, it's been amended and updated to address the larger new EAV that would flow into the TIF, as well as the addition of new CPI. And this is Bob.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey has a question.
I don't, but I think it's important to note why that building was not included in 92 in the TIF, or the building next to it. And the reason for that is it was a fully functioning, operating facility owned by Shure. It was their international headquarters. And so for that reason, I mean, the chances of any additional increment were slim to none. So we did not include that property originally.
Thank you. And just to point out, in terms of some background, when that area was set up, it had an initial base or EAV of about $7 million, and that's tripled since the time that the TIF has been established, with annual increment a little over $1 million a year to the benefit of the TIF district and redevelopment within that area. Just want to point out from the standpoint, and some of this is a reiteration of the initial findings that the city made in 92, is that the TIF plan, as amended, will conform to the city's comp plan. Their parcels are all contiguous and, as a whole, exceed 1.5 acres, and the but-for requirements are also present. Again, in terms of the TIF, it's not utilized in a vacuum. It's part of the city's ongoing planning process as it relates not only to this portion of the city, but economic development goals that the city has as a whole for the area. This is some TIF 101, just again, in terms of for the public. The TIF does not result in any new taxes or additional taxes. It basically parcels out the taxes as paid by the property owner or by the tenants into 2 buckets. The base taxes go into a separate fund, and that's returned to all the taxing districts as per normal. The new or incremental taxes as a result of valuation increases are returned by the county to a special fund that the city controls. And again, the idea, and this TIF has embodied that over the last several years, is that it's equalized assessed valuation increases, incremental taxes increase to pay for redevelopment costs. And again, there's no assurance to that, although in this case we've really experienced it. The TIF only has a couple years left, and again, it's had a history of positive increment and paying redevelopment costs. The factors then in 92, Again, as Johanna said, it was qualified as a blighted area, and that was, again, the area in front, which was the old industrial facility, Bell and Howell. For the First Amendment, we looked at the property. Again, only the new property was considered as part of the qualification. We looked at the 2 tax parcels, which included the former Schur building, and the area was found to qualify as a conservation area, of which the first criteria is majority of the buildings, in this case just one building, have to be 35 years old or greater. If that's the case, then 3 out of 13 factors must be found. We identified 5 of those factors. Obsolescence, as it just simply put, the building falling into disuse and its age. Deterioration was found in most of the site improvements, as well as some of the building components near the loading docks. Excessive vacancies. The building has been vacant on a continuous basis since about 2002. Deleterious layout related to the access and egress issues, primarily to the rear of the property. And the last factor, lagging EAV, again, that's more of a mathematical exercise. For 3 of the last 5 years, the EAV has declined, and then also for 3 out of the 5 years, it's been below the CPI. So again, only one of those is needed. We had 2 of those factors here. Today, as Johanna indicated, there will be no action by the City Council. The public hearings, the purpose is just to receive for the City Council to receive any public comments. And once the public hearing is closed, there's a waiting period of a minimum of 14 days, but no more than 90 days in which to introduce and consider the ordinances amending the TIF. And then those same ordinances are filed with the county clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is public comment and discussion. Public comment for this meeting is now open. Any questions or discussions with the City Council? All right. I would now like to open public comment to those who signed up to speak on this item, and I don't see anyone on my list. Does anyone want to speak on this item? Don't worry, Jack. I have you for other. I have your name here, just not on the tip. All right. Seeing no further comments or discussion, I would like to close the public hearing. Could someone make a motion? All right, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The public hearing is closed. Next item on the agenda is the mayor's public announcements and proclamations, and I have one. It is Native American Heritage Month in November 2013, whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly shaped by American Indians and indigenous peoples, and whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the democracy, freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, and whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by George Bush in August 1990, designating the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month, and whereas there are approximately 40,000 Native American peoples living in the Chicago area, including Evanston, and whereas Evanston's own Mitchell Museum of the American Indian has been educating local and international visitors for over 36 years about the art, history, and culture of American Indian and indigenous peoples. Now, therefore, I, Elizabeth Tisdall, Mayor of the City of Evanston, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2013 as Native American Heritage Month in Evanston, and urge all our citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. And I would like to give this to Kathleen McDonald of the Mitchell Museum, who is here tonight. Thank you very much for everything you do. City Manager, do you have public announcements?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, good evening. We're going to give you a 311 update another time, but I do have a letter I'd like to read to the council in your capacity as the town board. This is from my capacity as your acting township supervisor. I write regarding my appointment as acting township supervisor following the resignation of Mr. Gaspard. During my tenure as acting supervisor, I shall not accept increased compensation, pension benefits, or other benefits accruing to township employees, or that which may accrue to an elected supervisor. Under the Illinois Municipal Code, the City Code, and the City Council is the final authority to set my compensation as city manager. The compensation of the township supervisor is set via ordinance adopted by the town board. Please allow this correspondence to confirm that I do not seek and will not accept any additional compensation or benefits in addition to those I receive as city manager while acting supervisor of Evanston Township. So I provided this letter to all of you earlier today and made it available to members of the press. I'll just also say Ms. Thomas and I are moving forward working with the fine staff of the township on a variety of matters, some of which we'll talk about later this evening when we come to the ordinance regarding the township election. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Do you have anything on 311?
We'll do it another evening.
Okay. City Clerk, do you have communications?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a letter that I was given and asked to read by one of our residents. This is to City Clerk Rodney Green, City Council, Board of Trustees, dated today, October 28, 2013. I would like the following statement to be read into the record. In the document in the council package that deals with the general assistance, emergency assistance, and the assessment functions seem to flow back and forth between now and after March 18, 2014. It is not clear as to which department will carry out the general assistance, emergency assistance, and the assessment functions. Will it be carried out in the health, community development, park recreation, and Community Services Department? 2 years ago, the city manager presented a plan. This plan was in memos dated November 21 and November 22, 2011 in the package of the special city council meeting on Tuesday, November 29, 2011. The plan gave clear picture of how the general assistance, emergency assistance, and assessment functions would be carried out, even though the plan was not practical. The city has been working on dissolving the township office for 2 years. I and other electors expected more concise plan for handling the clients and residents that depend on the general assistance, emergency assistance, and assessment than the one in this council package. It is not clear whether the staff from the general assistance and the assessor office will be assigned. Will they become staff on the city payroll or not? The saving is being figured on reduction in staff, office rental, and taking over some administrative tasks. What happens to this savings when the full mental health board allocation, the town fund, and the city general fund will come out of general assistance fund levy? Will the levy for the general assistance, emergency assistance, and the mental health board stay the same or increase beyond the present levy for general assistance fund? Betty Esther.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to refer to the Rules Committee, the reading of absent constituents who provide letters to the city clerk for addition to the record. I have absolutely no problem with everybody in the world sending us documents to be included in the record. However, I think to read them when the person is not present is really asking a bit much. There is no reason why anybody should ever come to City Hall and make a statement at the podium if we can have our city clerk sit here and read their letters every night. I encourage word for word the inclusion of anything anybody wants to say in the record, but I oppose the city clerk reading absentee constituents' letters.
Okay, it would be my fault because the city clerk asked me what she should do.
No, I'm saying I think it's not going to be unusual for people to ask for that. So I'm just saying, let's
I
go
agree.
to the Rules Committee and
I agree with the reference.
make a reference to
Thank
that.
you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pursuant to our rules, maybe Mr. Bobkowitz wants, I know we're discussing township later this evening, but refer to the letter that was included in our packet that answers many of Ms. Esther's questions for clarification.
Yes, Alderman Grover, members of the council, on page 642 of the packet is a memorandum which does address many of Ms. Esther's questions. Again, Madam Mayor, I would suggest we wait until that point in the agenda, but if anyone is interested, they may refer to page 642 of the packet.
Thank you. City Clerk, does that conclude your
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
communications? Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comment. I'm going to read 4 names at a time. Please come up, limit your comments to 3 minutes each, and give your name and address. The first 4 speakers are Junad Risky, Matt Maloney, Jack Weiss, and Mary Brugliera.
Junad Risky. This is in regards to the Capitol tour, which is on the agenda tonight related to the budget. Once again, it reinforces my views. The city has a long way to go in capital planning. There's serious problems with the approach here and the level of engineering effort that was done to present some of the problems to the public. The process and the management needs major correction. There's also a major problem that individual departments are asking for improvements that appear grossly unnecessary. Fire Station number 2, I think, was a very good example. At $360 million to remodel the first floor kitchen and other things seemed highly unnecessary given the condition of it. I was really so disgusted with it, frankly, that I was thinking of calling the Tribune watchdog to come in, take some photos, and if this really ever gets approved, to really get it out to the rest of the Chicagoland area, because it was outrageous. There clearly is a major lack of what I would call thought here in some of these things. The water reservoir is just plain frightening to me. To suggest that we need to spend $26 million when the report said spend $4 million to replace the top. And all types of things here have been said about that already that make no sense. It appears to me someone wants to have that tank moved rather than really do what's effective for the taxpayers. If we have an extra $20 million, we better use that money to replace the broken infrastructure, which is the pipes that are under the streets here, and not replace a tank that is not necessary to replace. The director wants a 10% water rate increase, and that's what he didn't even not to bother at the last meeting to present his capital presentation. Was not presented. It was missing, in case anybody didn't notice that. I'm certain council members are going to approve this 10% water increase, but it's time the council members start to put some people's feet to the fire here. And on another item, I feel there was a good thing in this, and that was Fleetwood Jourdain. I thought putting a library place in Fleetwood Jourdain was a good thing. Unfortunately, again, city staff did not provide enough detail as to what was the scope of the project. And that should have been done. And then people would understand how much you're going to spend and what you're going to do. I think it's a good thing, but here again, staff did not do the work. And finally, on Harley Clark, we went down to the basement there and looked. What really fascinated me, and really council members have told the community, or at least some council members have stated to this community, Harley Clark is falling down. After I looked up at the ceiling in the basement, the building structure is concrete. That's not built like any house. That's built like a commercial building. It's not falling down. It was built by somebody with great wealth in the 1920s, and it was not built like a house. So I think council members and others who want to keep on saying that are absolutely wrong. There seem to be certain council members and senior management here that do not want our capital program run professionally, because that would allow them to misuse it for political purposes. Thank you.
Mr. Risky, can I ask a question?
Yes.
You had mentioned that the improvements at the fire station were $360 million.
No, I said $360,000.
Okay.
Or did I? All right, then I said, all right, you want me to?
Just wanted to make sure we were.
All right, maybe I but, well, Ann, it's $360 million, and I think anybody who goes there and sees it would understand. $360,000.
Thank you, Mr. Risky.
Good evening. I'm Matt Maloney. I'm the Director of Health Policy at the Respiratory Health Association. We'd like to express our support of the inclusion of the e-cigarettes in the Evanston smoke-free law. This hearing is reminiscent of a hearing 7 years ago that I joined partners with, talking about a law that would protect patrons, visitors, and workers from the dangers of secondhand smoke. Our argument at the time was that everyone deserves to breathe clean indoor air. The Evanston smoke-free ordinance and the subsequent smoke-free state law have proven to protect the health of the community, and they remain popular among the public. At the time, electronic cigarettes were not a well-known or utilized product. While they have exploded in popularity, they have not had the public health and scientific study on the health impact. Initial FDA studies have shown these devices contain detectable levels of cancer-causing chemicals, including an ingredient used in antifreeze. It's unclear also what byproducts are in the vapors that are emitted by these. Adding e-cigarettes to the smoke-free law would eliminate the risk of any workplace exposure to these products and their vapors. We don't want to take a step backwards in changing the social norms about smoking or create confusion with enforcement of the smoke-free ordinance. Many jurisdictions have already taken steps to eliminate the risk associated with these products. New Jersey, North Dakota, Utah, and then hundreds of over 100 municipalities have added e-cigarettes to the smoke-free law. Again, the bottom line is these products have not been deemed safe, and they put detectable levels of carcinogens and toxins in the air. The arguments we made on smoke-free 7 years ago remain true today. Everyone deserves to breathe healthy air. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jack Weiss, 813 Forest in Evanston. I'm here on behalf of the Preservation Commission, some of whose members and associates are here. Raise your hands. Thank you. Tonight you'll be hearing an appeal by David Kimball to the Preservation Commission's denial of his request to install replacement windows on his home at 2623 Lincoln. The Commission voted 8-0 to deny a certificate of appropriateness. There are a number of facts that affect this issue. One is that he claimed he was unaware that he owned a landmark property. A simple search of the city's website about my place shows clearly that his home is, in quotes, affected by historic landmark status. Mr. Kimball purchased 26 vinyl casement windows and double hung windows to replace existing metal casements even before he sought a building permit. Now he claims ignorance of the landmark status of his home. I suggest that ignorance of the law is no defense. He also stated that the beauty of the home is not driven by the windows. We on the Preservation Commission feel pretty strongly that windows are the face of a home. They're critical elements of a home's character. The proposed vinyl windows represent a loss of glass area of 18 to 23% in the existing casement windows and 3 to 10% in the existing double hung windows. They can't be painted to match the existing windows and aren't compatible with the existing steel casement windows. And lastly, the proposed double hung windows aren't compatible with the style and architecture of the landmark house that clearly features casement windows. Alderman Tendon, I'm sure you'll remember, as a member of the Sign Review Board when I was chairman, how we worked collaboratively with our petitioners to resolve their issues in a successful way. In the same spirit of collaboration, members of the Preservation Commission suggested several remedies for the issue. Mr. Kimball rejected all suggestions. His request failed to meet nine of the alteration standards that we are charged to uphold. So tonight I ask simply that you honor the trust placed in us by the mayor, respect our judgment, and reject the appeal by Mr. Kimball. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, one and all. I'm Mary Bruliera, 35 Knox Circle is my new address. I was on the Evanston Preservation Commission for 2 terms, that's 6 years, during which time in 2003, the owner of the Colonnade apartment building at Bay in Chicago was having double-hung vinyl windows installed in place of the steel casements original to that landmark building. He was notified in mid-project by an alert neighbor who also happened to be a former preservation commissioner. Work was stopped and he came before the commission. He first stated he didn't know the building was a landmark, but later said he did. He had never applied for a building permit. The Planning and Development Committee, in a preliminary hearing of his appeal of the Preservation Commission's unanimous rejection of his request to retain the windows he'd already installed, said he'd have to replace the double hungs with casements. This was finally completed. The City Council upheld the Commission's decision. I recall that Alderman Nguyen, for one, was particularly disappointed that the owner had not bothered to apply for a building permit. During the time I was on the Commission, I believe we had only 3 appeals to the Council. All 3 upheld the Commission's decisions. There were many times when the Commission's expert advice and suggestions were accepted by the homeowners. Many people said their projects were improved by these suggestions. There are now many expert window restoration firms in the Chicago area who know a great deal about how to make casement windows both environmentally sound and compatible with landmark features. As is well known, windows are a key feature of landmarks and should be restored whenever possible, as our widely admired preservation ordinance makes abundantly clear. Please vote to support both the Commission's unanimous denial of a certificate of appropriateness for Mr. Kimball's window replacement plan and our city's famous care for the historic buildings that contribute so much to Evanston's unique character and appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. The next 4 speakers are Thomas Kendall, Jared Yucht, April Bailey, and Bonnie Wilson.
Hi, my name is Tom Kendall, 724 Mulford here in Evanston. 2 weeks ago I addressed you with regard to the question of Ordinance 80-0-13, amending Title III of the cigarettes and tobacco products and so on and so forth. I would just, first of all, it was my understanding this had been essentially tabled to this meeting to revise the language of the proposed ordinance, but I find no changes. Specifically, there were supposed to be references to use taken out with sales replaced. At least that's what I read in the press. You're just continuing it on as it was, as it had been from the 14th.
Mr. Farrar, did you want to answer that?
Madam Mayor, members of council, as I stand here, I'm unaware of revisions. However, I believe the health department could possibly speak more to the language. I know that there was an issue with respect to the language last time, which is why the ordinance was continued over to tonight.
Perhaps the gentleman could finish his comments and we'll
Go right ahead.
gather up the health director. If there is going to be a revision taking place before this is voted on, I would like to assist in its revisions. Just as a one, for instance, you define liquid nicotine means any liquid product composed either in whole or a part of nicotine, propylene glycol, and other similar substances, and manufactured for use with an e-cigarette to be converted to gas for inhaling. Nicotine goes into a gas at about 650 degrees Fahrenheit. These devices don't ever get above about 240 degrees Fahrenheit. That's just one little problem I'd like to address. Another one is with regard to 13-4-2. I'm going to lead a little bit here. It shall be unlawful for any person to give away liquid nicotine products. One thing I've done since, about 3 or 4 months after I started vaping was
I bought a bunch of inexpensive, what are called cigalikes. These are basically disposable electronic cigarettes, which you would get at a gas station, for instance, and give them to smokers. Let me underline that. Give them only to smokers, adult smokers who wanted to try. That's all I've done. I'm not in the retail business, have no intention of going into the retail business. I just felt that it was incumbent on me as a good citizen to point out the benefits of these. So I was glad to hand out samples, but according to this, if I'm reading it correctly, I can't do that anymore unless I buy a $500 a year license. And I think that really ought to be addressed. Also, another factor is that vapors, there are thousands of different
I do need you to
vapors.
wrap up, please.
Okay, there are thousands of different vape flavors around. Vapors are in the habit of swapping around small vials of e-liquid. And it seems that this ordinance also prohibits that within the city of Evanston. I just think these are issues that ought to be addressed.
Thank you for your
Thank you
comments.
very much.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Tisdale and the council. My name is Jared Yucht. I actually own an electronic cigarette store in the city of Chicago. So obviously I have a vested interest in this, but I'll be very brief, I promise. In regards to the statements from the gentleman back there about the health effects, just want to mention a couple things. He mentioned antifreeze being in it. Antifreeze is actually not an ingredient in electronic cigarette liquids. That's diethylene glycol, which we use propylene glycol. There would be no way that antifreeze would somehow enter into this product. In terms of carcinogens as well, the FDA actually was not able to find any, basically failed to find harmful levels of carcinogens or toxic levels of any chemicals in the vapors. I just want to say a couple things real briefly. In terms of your definition on this, electronic cigarettes are electronic devices that deliver nicotine to the user in the form of vapor. We actually have a significant amount of vapors who do not use nicotine in their e-liquids. E-liquids, essentially many people use e-liquids to stop smoking cigarettes. And you gradually lower the levels to no longer smoke or use nicotine. So sometimes it's just propylene glycol, which is the same thing in inhalers, lollipops, anything. It's just a solvent. Also, I would like to tell you that I've probably gotten, since I've opened my store, I would throw an approximate number of 1,000 people to stop smoking cigarettes. If you asked any of these people whether or not they are smokers still, even though they no longer smoke cigarettes, they would say no, they do not smoke. So comparing it to a cigarette is something that would actually be offensive to them because they don't believe, as I don't, that they are smoking. So they are vaping. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is April Bailey. I reside at 533 North Michigan Avenue here in Evanston, and I represent the American Lung Association in Greater Chicago. I am the tobacco program manager, and I have lived and breathed a lot of the e-cigarette debate here and in Indianapolis when it was considered for their law. A few things to keep in mind. We support wholeheartedly the city including electronic cigarettes in their ordinance. We do not know what is in an e-cigarette. It's very plain and simple. The FDA has said they are not regulated. They cannot make the claims about smoking cessation. They are not an FDA-approved smoking cessation device. We, as the Illinois Tobacco Quit Line, will not recommend them for people to stop smoking because they also reinforce the smoking behavior because they don't break all the parts of the addiction, whereas the social and the behavioral part of actually mimicking smoking. We do, we are waiting for the FDA to come back with some more firm guidance, but as of right now, we cannot advocate for them, and we really just don't know how harmful the secondhand exposure is. The other key thing is to remember that when people are using e-cigarettes, it is an enforcement issue. I have personally been vaped at in the face, and had I not known that blue cigarettes tips were blue, I would have thought he was smoking. I saw the blue light, so I knew it was an e-cigarette, but that was the only indicator. Everything about it smelled the same, looked the same, gave the same impression. And people around me were asking, why is that guy smoking in here? So it renormalizes that behavior. It makes it hard for general customers and general patrons to know if somebody is smoking or not. And by including it as a tobacco product, including it with everything else, we remove it from places that smoking has been prohibited from for a very long time. This isn't just about bars and restaurants. We've heard teachers smoking them in class. Talk about renormalizing the behavior for children, that we're basically starting over with all the efforts we have made to make cigarette smoking not normal, not the norm. That e-cigarettes, as they continue to come about and kids are seeing them out in public, it just reinforces that. And the tobacco industry knows they have been buying up these companies, and I know everybody says e-cigarettes are for adults, but look at the flavors. Pina colada, strawberry daiquiri, cherry cola. I know all adult men, they want a pina colada cigarette, right? I think those might be targeted towards kids. So one thing I would add is that while we do support the ordinance, we would recommend actually looking at the definitions. I was advised by my national office for the American Lung Association that adding the definition of liquid nicotine product could be problematic in the future, as the FDA is defining. The FDA has said.
I do need you to wrap up,
Right.
please.
The FDA has said that e-cigarettes can be considered a tobacco product because it is derived from tobacco. So we would recommend going back and looking at that definition to ensure no future problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to the Evanston Township trustees. I'm Bonnie Wilson, Evanston Township assessor. I just want to make a point that I will continue to support Evanston Township and not support the ordinance 105-013 binding referendum for dissolution of Evanston Township. And I also want to say that Sharon Ecclesall was here today. She would support me in this, in not supporting this ordinance. I feel strongly that the services that my office provides cannot be duplicated if the city takes over the responsibility of the assessor's office, especially since, according to Supervisor Bob Farwat's memo, there will be one staff person as a taxpayer advocate. When I first became Evanston Township assessor in January 2010, I worked in the assessor's office almost every day until I hired my deputy assessor in August of the same year. Even though I had another staff person in the office, we always needed two people in the office, especially during the time when the assessor's office was open for appeals with the Board of Review and the Cook County assessor's offices. We are always busy during times when taxpayers receive their bills for the first and especially the second installment, and during the time of senior exemptions, filing, period mailings. I can admit that there might be downtimes, but those downtimes are only a few months at the end of the year. Who is going to input the permits to the AIM program during that time? Who is going to input the real estate transfer declaration in the AIM program when we are busy doing other services? Is this office still going to have access to the Cook County AS 400 program so the office can check property history and exemptions? Unless the staff person has access to these programs, it will be difficult to know the history of Evanston properties and be able to resolve the issues of the taxpayer. In the memo to the answers to the League of Women Voters questions, it states that the township assessor will likely be filled by acting positions until the election. If that is true, I would like to know if my position will still continue as township assessor in January, especially if I continue my certification as CIAO. If the voters do decide to dissolve the township on March 18th, will the township be dissolved immediately? And if so, will the city continue to use the money from the township levy that has been budgeted for 2014? I also feel strongly about the General Assistance Program and their staff. The staff, including Val Weidman, Harry Kogut, Carmen Cruz, and Rod Mitchell, have done an outstanding job in keeping the office together during these trying times. They all work hard and have always given the clients of Evanston excellent services, which are so important in serving residents of Evanston Township. I also want to state again that my office is now located in the Civic Center. We open from 8:30 to 5, and our number is 847-448-8168. Again, I want to state that I do not support Ordinance 105-013, which is the binding referendum for dissolution of Evanston Township. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Chris Dayrett, Priscilla Giles. Debbie, I apologize, can't read your last name at 1028. Ashland Evans. And Junad Risky.
Good evening, Board. Thanks for having me. My name is Chris Dayrett, and I'm an owner of a vape store located in Skokie, and we're also members of CASA. And we're here to discuss the 80-013 amendment title to go against cigarettes and tobacco products and restriction of use of electronic cigarettes and nicotine. Much like the other gentlemen, we've helped hundreds of thousands of customers quit smoking and find I feel a healthier alternative to smoking cigarettes. And banning the sale of nicotine or use of nicotine liquids in Evanston, I think, would be very detrimental to their health. And in regards to her statement saying that people who'd want to vape on something like pina colada, I mean, there's alcohol out there that's in form of whipped cream. I mean, who is that geared toward? Is that geared toward adults? I mean, I think this is a choice. It's what people want. They're looking for something with a little flavor, and that's what they're looking for. That's all I have to say. Other than, actually, there was a study recently in regards to electronic cigarettes, and it was done by Dr. Igor Burstein from the Department of Environmental and Occupational Health, the School of Public Health at Drexel University. I'm going to quote him. He says, there was no evidence of potential for exposure of e-cigarettes users to contaminants that are associated with risks to health at a level that would warrant attention. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Priscilla Giles, and I live at 1829 Ashland. We know that grocery stores sell pizza, but if we want the best pizza, we go to a place whose specialty is pizza. The people of Evanston Township, Evanston, deserve the maintenance of a specialty that is the Township of Evanston, with experienced personnel and the resources that go along with all of the things that they do for the people of Evanston. The people deserve a specialty, not a generic department in the larger city of Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Deborah Evans. I live at 1028 Ashland Avenue in Evanston. I have worked and lived in Evanston for the last 20 years. I'm here today to apply for a Class A liquor license. We are aiming to be the first brew pub to open in Evanston, and hopefully that will be in December. And we're really looking forward to working with all the community and to bringing some nice quality food and some quality beers to the area. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to speak to a non-agenda topic. Just like the issue with the township, a new issue, I believe, is about to start here, and that issue is this water tank on the lake. I think a lot of people need to understand, I believe politics are coming into this issue, just like the township, and it's going to be done for political reasons. In 1934, the city of Evanston signed an agreement with Northwestern University to allow the city to build a water tank on the lake. At the time, the city of Evanston gave Northwestern University a street in exchange for that. So there was an exchange. The street was called Willard Place. It ran from Sheridan Road to the lake. Also, that agreement back then, the city gave up a beach that it had an agreement with Northwestern University, a contract, which the city cannot get me the contract. But I know of several older residents here who actually swam at that beach at the time. So we vacated a beach we lost. So even in those days, Northwestern University had its interests in mind. If Northwestern University, it appears there's been statements made by city staff too, that Northwestern University wants this tank moved, they want a road through the area, they want this. Frankly, as a taxpayer, I don't believe this is right for the city to move a tank that doesn't possibly have to be moved. Northwestern needs to pay if it wants to move the tank, and not the residents of this town. I think Northwestern University also needs to let us use their beach, which was our beach at one time. I think some aldermen here have been saying that they want free beaches. I think we should start with Northwestern returning the beach we once had, which was in front of the water tank. This council really should be careful with this issue, because if residents understand the implications of this, that you're not doing what's right in the interest of the residents and going to charge them millions of dollars for something that doesn't have to be done for political purposes, the residents might, maybe not 500 people be here, but a few people will be here. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes citizen comment. City Manager, the next item is a special order of business. I guess I get to read this. There's an appeal to the city of 2623 Lincoln Street, a Landmark Preservation Commission decision of a denial of certificate of appropriateness. The staff recommends that the City Council accept David Kimball's application for appeal in regard to the Preservation Commission's decision not to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the replacement of existing steel casement windows with vinyl casement and double-hung windows on the house at 2623 Lincoln Street. Mr. Munzer, Alderman Grover, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. If we could, at the beginning of this, have an understanding as to what the procedure is for tonight. Staff is recommending that we accept an appeal. Do we take action beyond acceptance of the appeal, and is there a larger hearing about this matter?
After discussion, the City Council makes a decision to uphold the Commission's action denying the certificate of appropriateness or grant the appeal to reverse the Commission's decision and allow the installation of the vinyl windows on an Evanston landmark. Mr. Munzer, do you have anything to add to that?
I just wanted to briefly say, Mark Munzer, Director of Community Development, that in your memo, I'm going to be introducing Carlos Ruiz, who's going to briefly discuss the findings of the Preservation Commission and why this application was denied 8-0. It was briefly discussed during public comment. I would draw your attention to the bottom of page 2 of the memo, which describes the 3 primary reasons why the Commission denied this application. And the other thing I want to reiterate is that the Commission did attempt to work through a compromise with the applicant, and that is identified on page 3. And there's 5 different scenarios there that I believe Carlos will address very quickly, and we're going to have a very short presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Wally, can you turn the lights off? Sure.
Good evening, members of the City Council, Mayor Tisdale. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the Commission's findings on this case, which is 2623 Lincoln Street. The Preservation Commission reviewed this case on September 17, 2013. Mr. Kimball, the owner of this landmark building, proposed the replacement of all casement windows with new casement and double-hung windows. The Commission received a number of documents from Mr. Kimball, including the elevation drawings that I will just go briefly over, and also the description of the existing and proposed windows. The bottom line is that even though the vinyl windows attempt to replicate the appearance of the steel casement windows in some ways, do not necessarily seem to be the best solution to Mr. Kimball's challenges, which he listed in his application. Basically, he's proposing to replace these casement windows with vinyl windows. They have the same number of divider lights, but the way they operate is different. For instance, the upper lights are fixed, whereas the windows on the vinyl windows are just one pane that opens completely, like you can see on this drawing. Also, some of the findings of the commission included that the dimensions of the glass area will be reduced by the vinyl windows in certain percentage compared to the casement and the double hung windows. These are the elevations that he submitted, and I'm going to go briefly about the information that the commission received and reviewed. On this elevation, which is the south elevation, Mr. Kimball attempted to replicate the appearance of these windows with the exception of the one at the bottom. That one there now is a double hung window, which appears here. Also, on the next elevation, there is another change, which is the window on the second floor, that one there, which will be now, according to the application of Mr. Kimball, a double hung window right there. On the next elevation, on the second floor, there are 4 windows that are openings with casement windows that will be changed with from casement to double hung windows. This is the existing, and these are the proposed, which are the location, that one, that one, that one, and the last one on the right. On the next elevation, there are 2 windows that will be changed from casement to double hung, that one on the top and that one over there. At the end, when the commission looked at the standards for review, which are very specific as to alterations that would be appropriate, there are 10 standards for alteration. There's one standard the commission did not consider to be applicable, and that has to do with protecting archaeological resources. They're not doing any excavation on this case, so there's no applicability of this standard. However, the most significant standard is number 6, that says whenever possible, repair rather than replace, and when replacement is necessary, you replace it in kind, same style, same material, same everything, similar to the original windows, to be appropriate as a alteration for a landmark building. I'd like to mention too that Mr. Kimball's application dealt with 3 primary issues that he highlighted very well at the meeting, and that includes the safety of the windows, the security of the windows, and the non-functionality of the existing roll-up windows. The commission couldn't really make a decision based on those needs that Mr. Kimball has on these windows. They can only go through the standards for review, determine whether or not those are applicable or addressing the standards, but they're not. So, as you heard before from a member of the commission, this information is also provided by the applicant. The existing windows, compared to the proposed windows, which are the casement and the double hung, they will have a loss of glass area from 18% to 22% on the case of the casement windows, and from 3.4% to 10% in the case of the double hung windows. The commission also found that the proposed vinyl windows cannot be painted, and they're not compatible with the steel windows. And finally, the proposed double-hung windows are not compatible with the style and the architecture of the landmark to which are casement windows. The commission made also recommendations because they wanted to understand better whether or not these windows could be restored. So they asked to provide more information on the feasibility of restoring the steel windows. And they also said that if the steel windows could not be restored, that Mr. Kimball could consider other options, such as metal for metal. There are windows that are aluminum clad, or windows that can be painted. It could be wood windows as well. They also asked him to pay attention to how the light configuration works, because with Mr. Kimball's proposal, the grid that you see is between two panes of glass, so it's a flat surface, so there's no three-dimensionality in terms of the appearance of the windows when you have to divide the lights. And they also said that if the steel windows could not be restored, they asked to replace the casement windows with casement windows, or to use double-hung windows as much as minimally. So they still gave him some choices. And finally, if replacement is necessary, they fit the replacement windows within the existing window openings. So that's my report to the City Council, and you receive a complete packet of all the documentation that was shared with the Commission. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to respond.
Thank you very much. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Carlos. Could you just, for the audience, go over what the timeline was when the Commission first became aware of this?
Sure.
I mean, obviously, it was after they had purchased the windows. Was it when they came in to apply for a building permit?
We learned about the case when apparently the contractor came to the city for a permit to replace the windows. At that point, staff at the permit desk directed the case to my office.
Mm-hmm. And when the contractor came in, I believe on the application they have to answer the question whether it's a landmark or within a historic district. And was that answered, or how was it answered?
To be honest, I don't remember looking at that, but I knew that it was a landmark and they needed to go through either the Preservation Commission review or my office if they were repairing or replacing in kind.
Right. Well, my question really was, were the owners or did their contractor disclose at the time they applied for the building permit that
I need to
they
check
were aware
that
it was
because
a
it's a separate documentation for permits that I normally don't review as closely as an application for a certificate of properness, but I think that if we go back and determine whether or not they check that, I'll be happy to answer that.
Okay, I'd like to know that.
Thank you. Alderman Tendem.
I know there's a presentation by the applicant as well, but should we move to accept this and then have the discussion?
Yes, you can move to accept it.
Okay, I'd like to move to accept the appeal.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to accept the appeal. I see lights on. Alderman Grover, did you want to speak to the accepting the appeal, on Alderman Wilson, or should we vote on that and then go on?
Mine goes to the substance of the appeal.
All right. All in favor of accepting the appeal, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Alderman Tendem.
If there are, if there are specific questions for Mr. Ruiz, that's great. But I know that the applicant would like to discuss only. So far, we've only heard from staff and Preservation Commission.
He's on my list.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
On my, I'm following the script I was given to do this correctly. So, Mr. Farrar will review provisions of the preservation ordinance regarding appeals if needed, and when Mr. Ruiz is finished, then Mr. Kimball should make his presentation. So what I'm asking for is if there are questions for Mr. Ruiz. Alderman Grover. Alderman Wilson.
At this point, I believe I know the answer to the question, but the City of Evanston does not record landmark statuses when properties are designated landmarks. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's no provisions in our ordinance that requires that.
Okay, but requires or not, we don't do that, apparently.
We don't do that currently, no.
Okay. And but the federal government does record when they designate landmarks. Is that correct?
I don't know if they do it with Cook County or other municipalities. I don't have information on that.
Okay, so then you don't know about the state either?
No.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Excuse me. Alderman, we did check, the City of Chicago does record all of their landmark properties. So we have started to do that research, but again, it is not required by Evanston.
All right, well, then I'm going to take a mayor's prerogative and say one thing. Mr. Weiss has left, but there he is. You don't know what the people say who don't ever come before the Preservation Commission, so I want the Preservation Commission to hear this, as well as Mr. Ruiz and the rest of city staff. Friends of my daughter were trying to buy a house in Evanston. They did not want to buy a house that was had landmark status or was in a historic district. They very carefully researched and did not buy in a historic district, and they found 2 lists of houses that were landmark status, and their house was not on it. Then they got heavily into the process of buying it and had spent time and money on it and found out that their house was indeed a landmark and that they had to go to the Preservation Commission. And they called me for help, and my advice was you're going to have to go or find another house. So they are in the process of finding another house. So I would suggest that the way that we let people know that their house is a landmark is insufficient. I know that we try and do our best, but we're not reaching everybody with that information. So there has to be a better way to let people who want to buy a home in Evanston but do not wish to buy a landmark house know whether it is or is not a landmark. So that's my plea. Thank you for listening. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question for staff. Is there a process to remove landmark status from a property?
There is a process in the ordinance. The standards that apply would be to demonstrate that the structure no longer meets the criteria for landmark status. So the owner has to demonstrate that that particular structure no longer meets the criteria for landmark status.
So in essence, if they make this change, it will no longer meet the criteria?
If the city council goes with the appeal, that would be up to the owner to apply for delisting the landmark, and the commission will make the decision based on the application, whether or not it meets the standards.
Okay.
Alderman Fisk.
Just really briefly, and then we can have the other discussion and presentation. But it is, as Mr. Weiss pointed out, it is listed as a landmark on About My Place. I haven't seen the original listing sheet for the property. I don't know whether it was on the original listing sheet that it was a landmark. I'm aware that the City of Chicago does record its landmarks and that perhaps the City of Evanston hasn't done that because of the cost associated with recording for the number of landmarks that we have. But I would like to know, Mr. City Manager, what the cost would be to record landmarks so that they appear on title insurance policies.
Mr. Ruiz has some information on that.
Do you?
We had opportunity to address that issue earlier with Mr. Munzer, and we need to confirm, but I believe it's $40
per landmark?
Per property that is recorded, but we need to verify.
Okay, and that would include contributing structures in historic districts as well?
Well, the way the ordinance is written, all properties within historic districts are subject to the preservation ordinance, whether they're landmarks or not.
Right.
And also there are many landmarks that are outside the boundaries of the historic districts.
Right.
So we're talking about a substantial number of properties. We'll guess anywhere between 2,000 plus buildings that will be affected by recording those.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you, Alderman Grover. I'm sorry, Alderman Fisk, were you finished?
No, I just wanted to say that that would certainly protect us in future from any type of legal challenge, I think.
I just want to add that I went online to, kind of act like any citizen on our website, and I entered designated landmarks. It came out with a link to our landmarks. That is a link to our landmarks, which is a list of the landmarks that are listed in our preservation ordinance. I also entered just landmarks, a similar result. I also enter Evanston landmarks. I have similar result. And also to just the word landmark, and it will guide it to the link that has the listing of these properties.
Okay, so did this property show up on your
No,
search?
I'm just thinking that, well, it gives you the link to the list of landmarks. So if you open that.
And this
you'll be able-
property is on the list of landmarks that's in the Evanston
Right,
zoning
because
ordinance?
it's the list that is part of our preservation ordinance.
Okay.
And of course, anybody can address this by going to About My Place. They put the address and it will be listed as a landmark as well.
I guess I would really like you to know that not everybody knows to do that.
I understand. I'm just trying to show you that
Thank you.
there's ways to look at it up to.
Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. Does this house have a plaque on the front of the house showing that it's obtained landmark status? Or anything otherwise from the face of the building? Suggested?
As far as I know, there is no plaque on the building. There is a program that was established a few years back through the Evanston History Center and the City of Evanston in collaboration. The center wanted to raise some funds, so they established this program where they will sell a plaque to a landmark owner, and we, the city, will verify that that is a landmark. But the funds will be collected by the History Center. And currently that program has changed hands through the Preservation League of Evanston. They're taking that role to sell these plaques to whoever's interested. And we still verify the landmark status of the property. But we don't have in our ordinance a program where we, the city, will give a landmark owner a plaque.
I'm looking for some kind of way that it automatically hits somebody's prospective purchaser's radar screen, either looking at the building or something that bubbles up on a title that this house has this encumbrance, which is landmark status. Kind of the flip side to Alderman Braithwaite's question, as part of the Preservation Commission's deliberations on this property, was part of that a discussion of why this structure has landmark status, that is, what it is about this house that in 1972 put it on the list for landmark status, and the role that the windows play in this?
Well, one of the issues that was raised by Mr. Kimball is that there is no statement of significance on this building, and that is not necessarily unusual, but it would be desirable to have statement of significance for all landmarks.
The statement of significance would explain?
It will explain who is the architect, when was it built. It will describe the general aspects of the landmark, but it's not as specific as you would like we did for the survey back in 2012, where we describe the historic or architectural significance of the building.
So it's hard to know then why this house has been designated a landmark and what it is about the house that lent itself to this designation.
There are two pieces of document I found. One of them is obviously the listing of the 1972 survey by the state, where it was listed by the state as a significant structure in Illinois. That was in turn given the code of A9 by the Commission and the City Council when the Preservation Ordinance was adopted in 1978, and A9 meant that it is in the 1972 survey. And the other criteria they added is A5, which explains that simplify the work of nationally international non-architect or major local architect or master builder. So those were the two criteria that were listed according to the paperwork I
Kind of
found.
just two boxes this house checked, but it's hard to know substantively what about the house.
Well, I think that part of the commission's role is to look at these buildings for what they are. And we have qualified architects that have been appointed to the commission. They look at these standards carefully, and they make the decision based on the standards. Yes.
Alderman Holmes?
If I'm hearing you right, you're saying that there are 2,000 plus homes at $40 a property that would have to be, is that what I heard you say?
If the direction of the city council is to record.
Yeah, I understand that part, but I
Yes.
just want to get that.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously we have some kind of list at the city, otherwise this wouldn't have popped up, correct? Could not that list be given to realtors or someone so that when someone's going to purchase, I mean, isn't that a simple solution? Sometimes we make things so hard.
We had spoke today about possibly when residents come in for their transfer tax and they go into the clerk's office, that will be another check that the clerk's office can make to say that either you're a landmark or you're in a historic district.
Yeah.
But the issue with that is that that's late in the game, obviously. So we really need to look at that. At the end of the day, quite frankly, the option probably is to record. But I mean, that's a staff concern, that's a time concern, that's obviously a money concern.
Right.
So, but and this again is just, just now we'd want to come back and have an opportunity to research this and give you some solid recommendations about how to rectify it in the future once we're done with this case.
Okay. Well, I'm looking for something simple that doesn't cost a lot of money.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Carlos, could you just talk about the 1972 state survey, because that is the basis on which our Preservation Commission and ordinance is based, and that was when the state was setting up its historic preservation program in communities, I believe, above 500 people throughout the state of Illinois. Ann Swallow was, I believe, Historic Preservation Director at that time, legendary person. But not very many buildings in Evanston were on the 1972 survey, and they automatically became landmarks. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they automatically became landmarks when we established our Preservation Commission. So these were like the super landmarks. These were really important buildings in Evanston. They were researched for history, architectural value, all sorts of other things. So this is not just another house that happens to have landmark status. It's important because it was on that survey. And if there's anyone on the commission that can speak to that, or Carlos, you can speak to that, I think it's worth noting as part of the discussion.
We have two associate members who can speak on that. Unfortunately, they're not here tonight. Mary McWilliams and Earl, our commission's historians. My understanding is that the survey from the state provided the buildings that were automatically declared A9, and the council eventually approved the ordinance, including those buildings as Evanston landmarks.
Right.
Thank you. Alderman Tendam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the description regarding my home on Lincolnwood, only a few blocks from this house, there is a very distinct designation for historical architectural interest, let's say. It describes two features that really put it at the top or over the top, whatever was their desire. But nothing exists, right? And I know we're kind of reiterating the fact, but there's nothing of a description that has been recorded or saved about this house.
I was not able to find until this time, any information that would lead me to get a copy of the statement of significance, but I did find those documents that would justify its landmark designation.
Are all the original windows intact?
I believe there are at least one window opening that has existing casement that are replacements that were done by the prior owner.
But they didn't apply for any sort of permit to do that?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
And it's not that I'm not interested. You're the applicants, right? It's not that I'm not interested in what you all have to say, but I am going to say this. When I found out that we don't record these, it took me like the whole day to get over my disbelief that we don't record these. This, to me, is on the shocking end of the spectrum. So it's not your fault. Apparently it's been this way and it's not the Commission's fault. So however this got started and went on for decades without this being part of the process has done an extraordinary disservice to the Commission, to homeowners, to a lot of people involved. But to me, something on the website, I looked on the website. I went on there. I've never looked at about your place, so I looked at my house for the first time today, actually a little bit nervous because I thought, what if my house is on the list? And fortunately it wasn't. But that's not something I think a purchaser who's coming to Evanston is going to look at. They might look at the website, and there's a lot of stuff on our website. There's tons of stuff on our website. And it took me several tries at searches to come up with the list. I did find the list, but I had to do, I think I put in landmark houses, landmark homes. So it took several tries to get to this list. That said, the only realistic way you can do this is to record these. That's ordinary practice, and I don't know that we necessarily want to go back and do all 2,000. There might be a way to do these districts in a different manner. In other words, record. And there might already be something recorded. The federal districts probably already have something, but we need to address it. But all that said, it's pretty clear to me that these individuals went out, they purchased the windows without knowledge, or at least any proof that they had knowledge. They might have been able to find out some way or another, but there's no indication or no proof that they knew about it. So I don't really see how we can possibly hold them to this in view of the fact that we're not taking the ordinary and obvious step to inform residents that this is something that's going to work to their detriment. So I don't see any other way to see it. So
Thank
we
you.
could belabor it, but
Alderman Rainey.
Well, I was wondering, what I really want is us to move on and hear from the applicants or the appellants. I'm really getting bored with all this. But what I want to know is, was the property purchased through a real estate company? Was there a broker involved? And does the real estate community not have some obligation to share this detail with buyers? And what about the seller? Does the seller not have an obligation to share this information with the buyers? It seems to me extremely improbable, regardless of whether we record it or not, that there's a landmark property in this town that gets sold that nobody knows nothing about know-how. It doesn't make any sense, which does not go in any way to what happened here regarding buying windows before permits, et cetera. But that seems to me, and I will never support the city of Evanston paying to have landmark status recorded on titles of landmark properties. That should be the obligation of a seller or of a buyer or one of those parties, but not the city of Evanston. I don't think we have that obligation.
Thank you. There are
Could we hear from
3 more people who want to speak, and then I think we really need to hear from the applicant. Alderman Nguyen.
I'm happy to hear from the applicant first.
Thank you. Alderman Grover. All right. Could we hear from Mr. Kimball, please?
One point.
Alderman
We
Rainey.
have an entire room full of people with issues here.
I know we do. People have a lot to say on this subject. Mr. Kimball. Thank you, Carlos.
Okay, I'll be brief. Thank you. Thank you for your time tonight regarding these windows. I will say, when we bought our home in May, I did not expect to be standing here in front of all of you, hoping you get your approval on what my wife and I thought was a fairly standard window replacement project that many Evanston homeowners have completed many times without incident. First, some brief background. We've discussed some of this, but just on what brought us here tonight. In May of this year, we did purchase our new home at 2623 Lincoln. During the purchase process, we did determine that the home needed new windows as part of our consideration of the new home. We needed to address some what we felt pretty significant safety, security, and livability concerns, which I'll touch on briefly in a minute. We planned before purchasing the home to start our window replacement project soon after closing. In June, after closing, we started exploring new window options and ultimately asking 3 companies, local companies, to provide proposals to us. We chose the company that offered the best solution to solving our issues while being as close as possible matched to our current windows. It was important for us to find a match that was close. It is important for us to have windows that match the historic value of this home. We do value this home. That's why we purchased it, and one of the reasons is the historic value of this home. We then did go and purchase the windows with the company that we had selected in late June. At the same time, the window company was managing what they, in their extensive experience in dealing with Evanston projects, thought was a fairly standard permit for the installation of what are high-quality windows that, again, are exceptionally popular throughout Evanston. There was no expectation on their part that there would be anything getting in the way, so that was a parallel path as we went through the permit process. Then, in early July, we were informed by the window company that our permit was rejected due to our home having this landmark status. This was the first time that we were informed of this landmark status or were made aware of it. I immediately contacted Mr. Ruiz, and the preservation coordinator of the city, and he informed me about the application process and helped me prepare my submission, and I appreciated his help through that process. The process does require very extensive architectural drawings, so we had to go out and hire, at not an insignificant cost, an architect, and it took him several weeks to do the comprehensive drawings that you saw, both of the house as well as the detailed drawings of the windows themselves, to prepare our submission to meet the requirements of the Landmark Commission. As you know, our application was denied, which brings me here tonight. There are just several other, really 5 factors that I briefly want to touch on that I'd ask you to, that are basis of the request, and I ask you to please consider as you make your decision tonight. First, the existing windows do have significant defects. They are original to the house, and with that comes significant age, and we believe they need to be addressed immediately. We have significant and serious safety concerns because these older windows require you to lean out of your home to open or close, and particularly with young children in our home, we are quite uncomfortable with that, either for our children or any children that may be visiting our home, particularly on the second floor and potential falls from those windows. We also have safety concerns. The previous owners had experienced multiple break-ins through the windows of the home. Their solution to that was to permanently seal the first floor windows so they did not open at all. Now, that, I guess, solves some of the security issues, but that certainly makes our home less livable and less comfortable for us, but also, perhaps more importantly, makes it impossible to exit through these windows, particularly the fact that they're steel windows. Exit through them, they don't open, they're steel windows. You couldn't break them in case of a fire or other emergency. Finally, and perhaps less important, but certainly day-to-day livability was an important consideration for us. Carlos mentioned briefly they have pull-down screens that were original to the house, built in 1929. They do not work. They are not functional. We do not have screens that can work, and as I'll describe in a minute, they cannot be repaired. Also, the second floor windows that are not sealed shut do not close all the way, which is something that we've been noticing as the weather has gotten colder. Second point, we did not discover that this is a landmark status home until well after we purchased the home. At no point in this process have we talked about, either through the seller's disclosure, the seller's agent, our agent, both of whom have extensive Evanston experience, and it's the inspection, also a locally based inspector, the appraisal, the title insurance, our bank process, again, locally based bank, and then frankly, post-purchase, 3 different window companies, all with Evanston experience, did not uncover, or through their process of talking to us, that our home, unlike nearly every other home in our neighborhood, there are only a couple of other homes in our neighborhood that are subject to these significantly more demanding and expensive regulations. While it's true, as we've talked about, that this information is available on the Evanston website, my wife and I have lived in Evanston for most of the last 12 years, and we were simply not aware of this. We have not visited that website, and we were not aware through our purchase process that was available to us. In fact, in the Landmark Commission meeting, the commissioners confirmed that there really is no formal process for disclosure. We're troubled that homeowners can go through this entire process without knowing their new home is subject to these regulations, and frankly, we probably wouldn't have purchased this home had we known, and we certainly wouldn't have gambled the money that we spent on this home on the hope that we could somehow game this system. Third, there was no statement of significance, as we stated. The Commission has confirmed this fact, and that document is used to understand why this home has landmark status. Most landmark homes do have this statement of significance, and without this statement, no one knows what unique characteristics qualify our home for the status. And it really makes it impossible for us to ensure we are protecting the significant qualities of this home, and it also, importantly, inhibits our ability to really adequate and take advantage of whatever benefit there is of having a landmark home. When we do go to sell this home, we can't tell any potential buyers why this home is particularly significant. And therefore, there's really a limited basis for evaluating the Commission standard. Mr. Ruiz did talk about the Commission standards for review. Mr. Weiss did as well. But they also mentioned frequently through those standards the idea of significance, yet we do not know the significance, specific significance of this home. Further complicating that is the fact that a neighbor's home just 3 doors down and across the street from us was designed by the same architect, built in the same year, 1929, and has a very similar appearance, same stone, same window design, but it is not designated as a landmark status home. Fourth, we did purposely select our new windows to address the safety and security and livability issues I described, while matching as closely as possible. I know it's in your deck if it's helpful. I do have copies of the windows that proposed windows. What that image shows you on the top is the current windows, and the bottom is one of our new windows that's just propped up where it will be replaced. In our estimation, we are quite pleased to find a window company that could match very closely both the color. I know there's been many mentions of not being able to paint the windows, but we are able to match the color almost identically, as at least in our opinion, as we've looked at these windows. We were quite pleased to find this, and we were quite happy to do that. Regarding some discussion you've heard tonight regarding casements versus double hung, there are two sides of our home that face streets. So we're on the corner of Lincoln and Bennett. Most of the windows on those two sides are casement for casement windows. The one that Carlos mentioned on the screen, which is not on the image now, but is actually inside our porch, and we just decided not to put a casement there because it opens into the porch and makes it difficult to have furniture and other items in that porch. It is not seen from the street or really seen unless you're inside the porch. Finally, we did, unlike some of the comments made tonight, we have explored remedies suggested by the Commission. Mr. Ruiz, before we presented to the Commission, recommended 3 companies that do work on steel windows. 2 of those 3 companies are located out of state and were unwilling to provide an opinion travel to Chicago to do that. The one company that was recommended to us that is based in Chicago did spend most of a day in our home and determined that they could not repair or address our specific issues as we've laid out. So those are the kind of core issues of why we would please ask you to consider these factors in your decision and allow us to move forward with the installation of these windows so we can adequately address some of the issues that I think are really important to us and allow us to, frankly, enjoy our new home. So I thank you very much for your consideration tonight.
Thank you, Alderman Grover, and I would remind you all, Alderman Rainey's right. We have many other issues tonight.
Mayor?
Being mindful of the time, I appreciate the Preservation Commission's appreciation of this house. They're doing their job, but appropriate and adequate notice to the homeowner was not a criteria that the Commission could apply, and that's where I get hung up. Like Alderman Wilson, it's astonishing that over the years we haven't invested in recording these landmark statuses as to those properties that we have designated a landmark since 1972 when I was campaigning for McGovern in 4th grade. We're asking these property owners to be subject to an undisclosed landmark status that itself can't be explained, that absent statement of significance. And I think this amounts to an encumbrance on the property, and it has to be disclosed. And at this point, I can't see burdening these homeowners, these property owners, with a status that they were not aware of and couldn't have known through all the normal mechanisms when one's purchasing a home. So I would support the repeal in this case.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite.
I guess rather than make a long speech, I'll just make a motion to approve. I want to make sure that I make the right motion. I just want to allow them to install their windows with no more penalty. So grant the appeal. Yeah. I'll move to grant the appeal.
Second.
There it is.
All right, let me call on Alderman Nguyen, who apparently I haven't called on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Whose light was not on, so sorry.
It was before, but then I wanted to let the applicant speak. I wanted to just briefly speak. I agree with Alderman Grover and Alderman Braithwaite, and I think that we should grant you your appeal without question. I think the fact that this wasn't in the title insurance and all of the normal places you would find it indicates that we have work to do. I did want to address the issue that Mary Bugliaria raised about how very angry I was in 2003 when the owner of the Colonnade, which is a nationally registered landmark, and there's a plaque on the building, which is in the 3rd Ward, did begin to replace close to 90 windows on the building that were steel casement. That property owner was a commercial property owner. The building had a plaque on it, and it was on a national landmark, and it's in the historic district. So you have a very significant, different case. I mean, you obviously are not a commercial property owner. So there are many differences between your case and the one from the Colonnade years ago. So I completely sympathize with you, and I think that we should let you move on.
Thank you. Mr. Farrar, did you want to say something?
Madam Mayor, council members, just for the clarity of the record, I would suggest that the form of the motion be pursuant to 2-8-8G4, that the council reverse the Preservation Commission's denial of a certificate of appropriateness.
I think that's exactly what Alderman Braithwaite said, wasn't it? Thank you, Mr. Farrar. Alderman Tandem.
I'd like to call the vote, Madam Mayor.
Quickly.
It's simply a comment about process. It hasn't been mentioned very much tonight. If he had not purchased his windows first and then asked for a permit, but asked for a permit first, he would have found out that he had a landmark home and he wouldn't have purchased his windows. It's very, very simple. It's about that process.
Thank you. All right, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes. Aye. Alderman Tendem.
Aye.
Yes, then you are supporting Alderman Braithwaite's.
Yes. Alderman Grover.
Aye to reverse denial.
Alderman Rainey.
Could I have a moment and think about this? Because I promised the Preservation Commission I would support them, and then I heard information that I didn't know.
We'll come back to you at the end.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Sorry?
No.
No. Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Rainey.
I'm gonna vote no because I promised, but I wish you luck and I hope your windows look just fine.
Well, 7 for, 2 against.
The motion passes. Next, City Manager, Alderman Rainey.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to refer to the Rules Committee or to P&D, or to Administration of Public Works, the issue of identifying landmark properties and engage the real estate community to assist us so that we don't have to pay for it. I just really think.
I agree with you. Thank you. City Manager, the fiscal year 2014 budget.
We ask that if the council would like, we do that at the end of the meeting.
All right. Then Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda, please?
Of the payroll through October 6th, $2,687,580. City of Evanston bills, October 29th, $5,087,942. Approval is requested for a professional services agreement for the Phase 1 preliminary engineering services with SI Consulting. Street, Ridge Avenue, Green Bay Road Corridor Improvement Project. We ask for approval also to authorize the manager to execute change order number 1 to the agreement with Instituform Technologies USA for the large diameter sewer rehab Phase 1 project. The change order will reduce the contract amount by $272,808 to $2,816,420. We ask for approval also for the pre-qualification of contractors for cured-in-place pipe rehab and sewer mains. They are Per Construction and Instituform Technologies, Kenny Construction Company, Michaels Corporation, Pipeline Solutions, American Pipeliners, SAC Construction LLC, and Boozy Sewer. As pre-qualified contractors to perform the cured-in-place pipe rehab in the city sewer system for a 3-year period through 2016. We ask your approval also to authorize the manager to apply for an Illinois recycling grant through the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity to fund the multi-family residential recycling diversion program. Cost of the funding of the project is $55,000. $50,000 will be funded by the grant, Illinois Recycling Grant Funds. We ask for approval for School District 65 SALT agreement for 2013, 2014 in the amount of $66.67 per ton, plus 10% administration and fees. The same request is being made for District 202. $66.67 per ton, including the 10% increase. As for approval for Resolution 60R13, City Council would authorize the transfer of $700,000 of motor fuel tax funds to general maintenance by city forces. The next item, Madam Mayor, and members of the council, is for introduction and suspension of the rules. This is Ordinance 115-013, increasing the number of Class 2 liquor licenses, permitting issuance to Peckish Chase, 623 to 627.5 Howard Street. Oh no. 627.5 Howard Street. The local liquor commissioner recommends adoption of this ordinance. Madam Mayor, I move to suspend the rules on Ordinance 115-013. Ordinance 116-013, request is also made for introduction and action. This This deletes a Class D liquor license issued to the previous owner of Jilly's Cafe, 2614 Green Bay Road. I move to suspend the rules on Ordinance 116-013. Ordinance 117-013 is a
Alderman Rainey?
request. What?
Would you treat that one in the same manner that
Yes,
you
I'm
just
going
treated?
to, yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
It's Ordinance 117-013 issues a Class D liquor license to DN Marion, Inc., 2614 Green Bay Road, the new owner. Madam Mayor, I also move to suspend the rules on Ordinance 117-013. Next, the same situation, Ordinance 118-013, increasing the number of Class N liquor licenses for issuance to Walgreens, 635 Chicago Avenue. Madam Mayor, I move to suspend the rules on Ordinance 118-013. Next is Ordinance 119-013, amending the City Code subsection 346Y, Class Y liquor licenses to permit limited sale of wine by the glass. This is for introduction. The committee requests adoption on Ordinance 78-013, which amends the City Code, commercial signs on sidewalks. This ordinance was introduced on October 14. We ask your approval for adoption of Ordinance 92-013, by which the City Council would amend subsection 101117C of the Code to increase the fines for... I think this should be off the consent agenda. I'm going to remove it just in case. I know Alderman Burris has issues with that. Ordinance, I'm not sure about this one. Does anybody know where Alderman Burris is?
She's coming.
Does she want? Sorry. Sis. Alderman Burris, do you want the sidewalk snow removal removed from the agenda? No. Ordinance 106-013 is for adoption, and that has to do with council amending Title VII of the City Code relating to clearance of snow and ice from sidewalks and other related matters in the city of Evanston. Ordinance 110-013 is also for action. Staff recommends adoption of this ordinance, by which the City Council would amend 1011-8, parentheses A, Schedule 8 of the City Code to prohibit parking on the south side of Austin from Elmwood to Sherman Avenue. Ordinance 101-013 is for action and would decrease the number of Class C liquor licenses due to the lapse in license for Pensiero Restaurant, 1566 Lake Avenue. We ask your approval for Ordinance 104-013, which amends City Code Title III, Chapter 4, to permit issuance of a Class B liquor license to Coffee House Holdings doing business as Starbucks, 1734 Sherman Avenue. For action also is Ordinance 108-013, creating a liquor license classification M. That has to do with the applicant for the license in Grape Company. Ordinance 111-013 amends City Code Title IV Building Regulations by adopting the 2011-2012 Model Cities Code by reference with certain amendments. We ask your approval for Ordinance 114-013 for the issuance of $30 million in general obligation bonds to be used to refund the 2004-5 GO bonds. The issuance will reduce interest costs on this debt as well as reduce the outstanding bonds due and payable by the city, resulting in an estimated debt service saving between $2.5 million and $3.75 million over the remaining life of these bonds. Planning and Development Committee met this evening, and we recommend your approval of Resolution 59R13, which designates the portion of Greenleaf Street between Florence Avenue and Dewey Avenue with the honorary street name sign Sam McKinley Jr. Way. It's for action tonight. The Plan Commission and staff in the committee recommend amending the zoning ordinance to allow commercial parking lots as special uses in the B3 district with front yard and side yard landscape setbacks. It should be noted that the only B3 is in the Howard Street area in the Howard Ridge TIF district. Next is P3. The Zoning Board of Appeals and city staff in the committee recommend the adoption of Ordinance 112-013, granting a special use permit for the operation of a private educational institution, Beacon Academy, a Montessori high school at 622 Davis. Human Services Committee, I believe, has several items off the consent agenda. H1, correct? H2. How about H3? Okay, we're batting 1,000. All the items on the Human Services Committee are off the consent agenda. Madam Mayor has been very busy and has the following appointments for your approval. ADA Advisory Board, Larry Biondi, Sue Kantner, representative from the Commission on Aging, Susan Newman, representative of the Library Board. Then we have the new committee, Age Friendly Evanston Task Force, Susan Churko, Helen Gagel, Dorothy Strong, representative of the Commission on Aging, Wayne Heimbach, representative of the Commission on Aging, Susan Cantor, representative of the Commission on Aging, Martha Holmes, representative of the Commission on Aging, and John Barfield, representative of the Mental Health Board. The Zoning Board of Appeals appointment, the mayor has appointed Matthew Rogers as chair. For reappointment to the Parks and Recreation Board, Randall Main. With that, Madam Mayor, the consent agenda is completed, and I therefore move approval.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Seeing no lights for discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes. Aye. Alderman Tendem. Aye. Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris. Aye. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen. Aye. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
We have,
9-0.
yeah.
The consent agenda passes. Alderman Rainey, could we have Administration and Public Works, please?
Yes, ma'am. A16, Ordinance 92-013, amending the city code to increase the fines for snow emergency parking violations.
There are a couple suspension of the rules before that, are there not?
Could I just get rid of this?
Sure. All right.
Adoption of proposed ordinance 92-013, by which the City Council would amend subsection 101117C of the City Code to increase the fines for snow emergency parking violations from $40 to $55, and snow relocation fine will increase from $105 to $150. Move approval.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 92-013, amending the City Code. All right, Alderman Burris.
I just want to say I'm in opposition to this. I don't think we should be raising fines at this time.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? Then it's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 92-013, amending the City Code to increase the fines for snow emergency parking violations. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes. Aye. Alderman Tendem. Aye. Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris. Aye. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. No. 6-4, 3 against.
The motion passes. Alderman Rainey?
A10, Madam Mayor, the rules have been suspended. I move approval of Ordinance 115-013, increasing the number of Class D liquor licenses permitting the issuance to Peckish Pig, 623, 627 and a half Howard Street, the very first brew pub in the city of Evanston.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 115-013. Seeing no lights on for further discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes? Aye. Alderman Tendem? Aye. Alderman Grover? Aye. Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Burris? Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Alderman Nguyen? Alderman Wilson? 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
Next, we have two suspensions that are connected. First, A11, Ordinance 116-013, decreases the number of Class D liquor licenses due to the previous owner of Julie's Cafe selling that establishment. Could I do the second one?
Yes, do them both.
How about in the third one, too? Ordinance 117-013 issues a Class D liquor license to the new owner of Jilly's Restaurant, D.N. Marion, Inc., 2614 Green Bay Road.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 116-013 and ordinance 117-013. Seeing no lights for further discussion, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes? Aye. Alderman Tendem? Aye. Alderman Grover? Aye. Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Burris? Aye. Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen? Aye. Alderman Wilson? Aye. 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes.
Madam Mayor, I move approval, the rules have been suspended on this, of Ordinance 18-013, increasing the number of Class N liquor licenses for issuance to Walgreens at 635 Chicago Avenue. Move approval.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 118-013, increasing the number of Class N liquor licenses for issuance to Walgreens. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes? Aye. Alderman Tendem? Aye. Alderman Grover? Aye. Alderman Rainey? Aye. Alderman Burris? Aye. Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen? Aye. Alderman Wilson? 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. Alderman Rainey, does that complete your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, I'm sorry, on 820,
Go right ahead.
on Starbucks, in terms of the time, because that's an issue for me. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. Thought it was off the agenda. And the whole time in terms of when they would start to serve their evening program at Starbucks. It says 2 o'clock, and I had said 5 in the amendment, I believe, at the last meeting. I know I did. So
You did.
But it's I'm sorry, I must have been out when Alderman Rainey called it.
My apologies. Mr. Farrar, what can we do at this point to change the starting time? Or do we have to bring it back at the next meeting?
Well, you have to sign it, first of all. Huh?
Madam Mayor, members of council, with respect to this, it's already been adopted. However, the council could reopen it upon a motion made by Alderman Holmes if the council wanted to go ahead and take another vote relative to that amendment and then pass as amended.
But you could reconsider.
Okay, well,
Yeah, there you could.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that's why I wasn't out. Okay, I didn't realize that it was not off of consent. I was waiting for it to come up to speak to it. So.
Alderman Fisk?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The applicant and his attorney and
left. Yeah,
have left, and I don't.
It's not there. It's Alderman Holmes that's concerned about it, not them.
Okay, it is all right for Alderman Holmes, even though she voted for it, to bring it up now. I mean, to just tell us what you do.
Suggest the motion to reconsider. She voted on the prevailing side. She can reconsider.
Okay.
Okay. I move to reconsider.
Is there a second?
I'll
Alderman
second.
Rainey?
What I'm thinking is, it's already, it's passed. The mayor has not signed it. Couldn't she just move to amend it as opposed to reconsidering?
Well, that was the other thing that I suggested as well. Make a motion to amend, vote on the amendment, then pass as adopted, as amended. Pass as amended to adopt with a new 2 o'clock time.
Okay.
5 o'clock.
No, I didn't even go for the 6. Okay, I would move to amend the motion, amend the ordinance.
The ordinance.
I would move to amend the ordinance to read, and I'll go with the 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock start time for the Starbucks evening program.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Braithwaite?
I don't see it in the ordinance.
Where's the time?
If you look, it says on the application, it says 2 o'clock, and that's what I was reading back to make sure I was correct, because I had asked that it be amended at the last meeting.
Yeah.
The ordinance does not have a time.
The ordinance, you're correct, Alderman Wilson. The ordinance does not have a time, so there would have to be language in, let's see, section, it would be a new section 3, and we would have to renumber the sections of the ordinance specifically and say, and it would have to be pertaining to this specific license only. So it would not amend a Class B classification within the code. It would be a special time in new section 3 of ordinance 104-0-13. And that section 3 could state, for purposes, and I'm trying to phrase the wording of the motion, for purposes of this license for the Starbucks located at 1734 Sherman Avenue, the start time for retail sale of alcohol would be at 4 p.m.
I'll go for the 4.
Okay.
All right, Alderman Wilson?
Just thinking procedural. You made a motion at the last meeting to change this, and it was passed, right? So,
Yes, it did.
So really what this is just doing is it's just correcting the draft that was submitted, because that was a past revision or amendment to the provision that we have in front of us, except through a drafting oversight that was not included.
But I mean, it has to be.
Right. I'm just making the record a little more clear as to why we're making this adjustment.
Alderman Rainey? Did you have anything more? Okay. Yeah.
An oversight's an oversight. It happens.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion.
How about I do this? How about I try and read it into the record, the motion?
How about you do that?
Please do that.
Okay. Upon motion of Alderman Holmes and seconded as reflected in the minutes, the motion will be to amend ordinance 104-0-13, adding a new section 3 to provide that for purposes of this license, liquor license, granted to the Starbucks located at 1734 Sherman Avenue, that the retail sale of alcohol shall be permitted as of 4 p.m. daily. And then the rest of the ordinance sections shall be renumbered accordingly.
Thank you. All right. It has been moved and seconded as our attorney just laid out. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tendem. Aye. Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson, 9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. All right, that does conclude A&PW. Alderman Nguyen.
Fisk.
Alderman Fisk. Was there anything, nothing was pulled on planning and development? All right, then we are at Human Services, which is chaired by Alderman Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Approval of the lakefront use special events policy. The Park and Recreation Board recommends City Council's consideration of approval of modifications to the special events policy for lakefront use as a 3-year pilot at which the City Council can extend to modify the policy. The agenda items. This agenda item was held on from the October 28th, 2013 City Council meeting. I move approval.
Second.
Sorry, Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council's holding this at the last meeting. I've spent some time looking at this, and I appreciate all of the hard work that the Recreation Board put into this to expand the number of events on the lakefront. I am in favor of expanding the number of events on the lakefront. The only amendment that I would like to offer to this is if you look at your packet on page 623, there is a list of the criteria to determine if an event is high impact or low impact. I think the list is excellent. There's a list of 8 items there which include amplification, whether the event is on a weekend, if it's more than 250 people. I won't go through the whole list. According to what was offered by the Recreation Board, if you meet 5 of those 8 described characteristics, the event is a high impact. The only change I would like to make is that if you meet 4 of those, the event is high impact. And my reasons for this are that if you could have an event that meets on a Saturday, involves amplification, has 500 people, and is more than 3 hours long, and it would not be considered a high impact to the community according to this standard. Yet I think most of us would agree that that would be a high impact event. So I think if we reduce the number from 5 to 4, we will get the events that are high impact, but we'll still have many events that are low impact. And as I said, I do not have an objection to expanding the number of events during the non-summer months. We're all out there enjoying the lakefront much more now that we have milder weather and we have warmer clothing. So I would move to make that change, to change the language that would read, events that meet more than 3 of the criteria listed below may qualify as high impact. And then I would delete the next sentence.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Alderman Holmes?
I did have a conversation with Alderman Nguyen about this. I'm not sure that the number matters. I think that there's a whole nother issue when we start to talk about amplification. And I really do think that there ought to be levels of it, as well as length of times and times of day. And that's something that could be worked on, maybe with the staff, or we could ask the rec board to look at that as a part of resolving, I think, the issue, because the noise level, I do think is something that needs to be dealt with. So that would be one of the things that I think should be looked at.
Thank you, Alderman Holmes. Did you want to make that as a motion to refer it to the rec board, or?
To look at the possibility of the levels of the amplification, and also length of times and times of day, in terms of whether it's early morning, in the evenings, or afternoons, because I think that would impact it.
Alderman Holmes, would you accept that rather than referring it back to the rec board, because they've worked on this quite a bit, that the staff come back to us with more information about that?
That's fine.
All right, Alderman Grover?
I think she wants
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Agreeing that not all amplification is equal.
Right.
I think it's a good idea. I'd support the policy as it is with the idea of coming back with more information about how amplification changes events.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the policy as amended. Are you agreeing? All right. Well, Alderman Nguyen amended it to meeting three of the criteria. Is that correct?
Four out of the 8.
4 out of.
But I agree with Alderman Holmes. We did have a discussion about this, about the question of amplification. I believe that that is a critical issue for any event that makes it. It can shift from being ready, set, go, and that's amplification, but to amplification over a long period of time is very different. I talked to the city manager about this earlier today, and we tried to figure out a little bit more about how we designate, how we look at this when we permit events. And I'd be happy to hear what the staff has to say about that, because I do think the amplification is the most critical part of it.
Right.
I mean, you could have 1,000 people walk by quietly, and that's not a high-impact event.
Right.
Alderman Rainey, and then we should vote on this.
Alderman Rainey, I would
thought your amendment had to do with reducing to 3. Did you not say that?
No. Okay.
I said no on
that.
Would you state your amendment?
The language that's here says more than 4. So I could make it simpler by simply saying, sorry, I don't have the right glasses.
More than 4, the criteria listed below.
Right. So if we said more than 3, or simply said events that meet 4 of the criteria listed below. No.
Well, what are you changing?
4
It
or
says
more.
4.
No, it says more than 4, Alderman Rainey. I'd like it to say 4
I said it
or
say-
more.
Currently, it's 5, and
I'd like it to be
should
4.
reduce it to 4.
This isn't the clearest language, I have to say.
Oh, my God.
Alderman Grover?
I'm voting no.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. I appreciate your concern about amplification. Mine's the same. I'm just worried about changing the criteria because it'll catch other really smaller, low-impact events that way. So, but let's make sure we follow up and look at different ways that we can manage amplification at events.
That's the issue.
All right, Alderman Nguyen, you made the motion.
I'd be willing to withdraw the motion until we get more information about the amplification issues.
Okay, good.
Okay.
No, let's go past it.
Okay. Okay, then I will continue with my motion then, because if we're going to act on it tonight, then I think we have to move it to 4 rather than keep it at 5.
I'm sorry, go ahead and speak.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. As part of the Park and Rec Board and someone who helped write the recommendations, I would agree with Alderman Nguyen. I think we kind of tried to set up a framework for you to debate and work within. So I don't think anyone, including Randall or anyone else on our board, would be opposed to changing that to 4 events. And changing the language to make it clear makes a lot of sense.
It's not for
I'm sorry. For criteria, no, I'm sorry. To change it to 4 high impact making it, or 4 criteria making it a high impact event.
Thank you.
There is, another criteria for amplification, and it does also, there's another criteria for the event being 3 hours or more. So I think the way we tried to structure it is that if you have kind of a matrix and you have all these things going on, it will push it into that category. I don't know if there is an ordinance. I believe there might be, or there's some kind of ordinance about when you can start amplification in the city. Maybe someone here knows that. I think that might be a better way to deal with the issue, because it should be in all of our parks that you can't start amplification like before 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Maybe that's a better way to deal with that issue, because I think that would apply to any of our parks when you're having a special event that's got 500 people or amplification involved.
That's
so
a
that
good
might
point.
be a greater issue.
I think we do have an ordinance.
Have a noise ordinance.
About when amplification has to end.
Right. And I think that when we were discussing these issues, that was one thing that came up, because we did talk about the timing on the amplification, knowing that that would affect a lot of people. So again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I just remember from our discussions, we did talk about that. So maybe that can be dealt with outside of this.
Okay, because that was not noted in here, so that would be fine. I have no problem with that. There is a noise ordinance. I do know that. And, and what times it starts and all of that. But I was telling Alderman Nguyen that I could understand, if neighbors were complaining about the level.
Right.
And just if it already pushes into a time frame, then I'm fine with that. If you already have that, but I haven't seen that.
And I don't know, I can't speak to that specifically, but I would suggest you deal with outside of this, because I would try to treat, one of the reasons why we did this was to make all the permitting equitable throughout Evanston and for all the parks. So I would suggest maybe you try to do that, as city for a whole, for all the parks.
And I hear you, except that your number 5 says the event involves amplification, and I'm just wanting to understand what that means, because and it certainly should apply everywhere. I'm not just trying to make it apply there.
Right.
So I just need to understand. I personally need to understand what that means.
I would offer that simply requiring amplification. Remember, this is a lakefront policy recommendation. Simply requiring amplification in the first place sets the standard pretty low for how loud you can be. I would offer that you consider that to be the concern. Meaning, if you're just bothering to amplify in the first place, how loud you go from there, you've already amplified. So this becomes a high impact issue immediately as soon as you amplify. There was one suggestion made that perhaps amplification be given 2 counts in this. I'm not condoning or denying that, but I am saying that that was discussed at some point along the way.
And one of the events that's in the grandfathered 12 events that has been reoccurring for many years is the Starlight Concerts, which is a city-sponsored event. That requires amplification, obviously. I don't think the city would want to stop doing something like that, or maybe, that could possibly cause it to be a higher event, because traditionally there are about 700 participants is what the staff estimates, and obviously they're amplified, and it is for 2 hours in the evening for 4 to 6 times out of the year, and I think at least 4 of them is at Dawes Park or in that lakefront. So it's tricky. We were trying to create something that would apply and you could use to put a filter through all of these permits that you get, that staff had been getting in the past, because they also informed us of a lot of different things and requests they were getting throughout the years that they couldn't do, or they thought maybe wouldn't be a big impact, but they couldn't do because of a number of events that previously that kind of restriction was going on. So again, it's up to you to discuss that, but I would really hope that you would discuss it here and vote on it tonight and not send it back to the park board, or try to deal with it, an issue like that for amplification or time at, citywide. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for serving on the park board also.
Thank you.
Mr. McCray.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'm Madam Clerk. Joe McCray, Deputy City Manager and Interim Parks and Rec Director. In terms of the amplification, I do believe that there is a noise ordinance that would apply, obviously, to all the parks. But also on the application itself, it speaks to loudspeaker permits, and it says no operation of loudspeakers will be permitted between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. from Sunday evening through Friday morning, and between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Friday evening through Sunday morning, and on those evenings preceding national holidays and legal school holidays. So that's what's in the application when they make an application for a special permit on the lakefront right now.
Thank you. All right. Alderman Nguyen, you have a motion before us.
I'll maintain my motion.
All right. Alderman Rainey, did you want to speak? All right. It's been moved and seconded to change the language to 4 or more events.
No, criteria.
Criteria becoming a major event. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes?
No.
Alderman Tendem?
No.
Alderman Grover?
No.
Alderman Rainey? No. Alderman Burris? Alderman Fisk?
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite?
No.
Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
3, 4, and 6 against.
The motion fails.
The amendment.
The amendment.
Amendment fails.
The amendment fails.
I move
All right.
approval of the policy as drafted.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the lakefront use special events policy. I think we can do all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it.
All right. H2 Ordinance 80-0-13, amending Title III, Chapter 14, cigarettes and tobacco products to add restrictions for the use of electronic cigarettes and liquid nicotine. The Human Services Committee and staff recommends that the City Council authorize adoption of Ordinance 80-0-13, amending Title III, Chapter 14, cigarettes and tobacco products to add restrictions to use of the electronic cigarettes and liquid nicotine. This ordinance was introduced on September 23rd, 2013 at the City Council meeting. It was held on October 28th, 2013.
Move approval of the ordinance.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance. Alderman Rainey?
Madam Mayor, I've talked to so many people about this and took a poll in my ward, and overwhelmingly people felt, with very few exceptions, that we should not pass this. People, it's on and I'm talking into it. People in fact, I think all the people that responded that we should not pass this are not smokers. I don't know if they ever have been, but they are not now. What I want to know, first of all, the explanation about a teacher using an e-cigarette in a classroom is absolutely incredible. A school has an obligation to make a law not allowing that. Before we passed the anti-smoking law in Evanston, there were all sorts of establishments that said, you may not smoke in here. You may not smoke in here. You may not smoke in the parking lot. You may not smoke anywhere. I'm not sure why we can't encourage those who want to say you cannot smoke here, an e-cigarette, to do so. I'm not sure why we have to have this law. I'm inclined not to support it. I don't think that it is as dangerous as people are saying. I've read the studies that we've been sent and national health studies. It seems to me that every effort humanly possible to help people to quit smoking should be encouraged. Not that people should be encouraged to smoke an e-cigarette in the council chambers or in City Hall or in a school or in a bar or in a restaurant, but that we should not ban them. And if there's a bar or a restaurant that wants to allow them, let them duke it out with the other patrons. I'm telling you, if it becomes economically an economic deterrent, then the restaurant will say you cannot smoke an e-cigarette in here. I just don't see that we need to step into this. Everything should be done. I smoked for years. It took me 10 years to quit. It wasn't easy, and I think many of you probably have never smoked, and I'm just encouraging you to do whatever you can to let people use these and to encourage commercial establishments and public buildings and schools to say, don't smoke them in here. You have to smoke them outside. But I don't see why we need to take this huge step and disallow this?
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
Thank you. And I definitely agree that we should encourage and promote every opportunity for people to discontinue smoking. On the other hand, with regard to these particular products, one of the big problems that I have is that because the products themselves are totally unregulated, nobody knows what is going to be in the particular e-cigarette that somebody's going to be using next to you. In a totally unregulated environment, there's no control. There could be anything in it, and the person using it might not know, the person next to them wouldn't know, and it is a question of public health. I think that in the absence of any kind of standards, it's dangerous to put people potentially at risk. I recognize that these are far safer than the ordinary cigarette, generally speaking, but again, without any sort of regulation or product quality control or anything at all. Anything could be in these products, and I think tying it to the existing location bans is probably the only thing that makes sense. So I think the representative from the Lung Association probably said it generally best, but a lot of progress has been made, and I think that that this would kind of be taking a step back.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, and agreed. It seems to me that allowing the use of electronic cigarettes in all those places where we ban cigarettes is not a matter of saving lives, but really it would just be a matter of convenience for the people who use electronic cigarettes when there are other ways for them to get their nicotine. It doesn't have to be an electronic cigarette, and there are many other places where they can use electronic cigarettes. They don't necessarily have to be in public places and places where people gather. There's outdoors, in their own homes, in their own cars. I don't see this as a matter of health necessarily, but one of convenience for the users of electronic cigarettes. So I'm supporting the ordinance.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
One of the things that came to mind after I talked to Alderman Wilson after our last meeting, and he mentioned that there are toxins in this, that we approve on a regular basis the establishment of outdoor cafes, all of which, if you are sitting in a chair at an outdoor cafe in the city of Evanston, you are at nose level with every exhaust pipe going up and down the street. In fact, some of the outdoor cafes are at intersections on corners, and some are at curbs where there are cars parking. So you are inhaling the fumes of all sorts of vehicles that, all sorts of toxins, and we don't worry about that. And probably if a restaurant wanted to allow, I can't imagine a restaurant in Evanston would allow an electronic cigarette. I bet they're going to have all sorts of signs up, even if we didn't ban them. So I think we're being a little hypocritical where we encourage outdoor cafes where you're breathing exhaust from cars, and you're not going to let e-cigarettes. I don't know. It seems strange.
Thank you. Alderman Burris.
During the public comment, a gentleman had some questions, and I believe Mr. Bobkowitz, Mr. Farrar, and Director Thomas went and had a conversation, but we never found out the follow-up to the questions regarding this ordinance. So that's my first question or comment. My second is...
You mean if it's the correct ordinance?
Yeah, if it's the correct ordinance, and I think there were supposed to be changes from the ordinance previously. I think you had a powwow. Just wanted if you could follow up on that. And then the second is, my brother is a smoker and is trying not to smoke now and is doing the electronic cigarettes, and I really don't like the vapors from it. He's not allowed to smoke them inside. He has to smoke them outside, and but when we do have to smell them,
honestly, they have a bad, I have a bad reflex to the vapors coming out. So I will be in support of this, but I would like the question answered. Thanks.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Alderman Burris, I think there was just a misunderstanding of what this is. This is amending our existing tobacco ordinance to include e-cigarettes. So there was a lot of conditions and things that there was a question. All we're doing with this ordinance is amending our existing law. So
This is not a ban?
That was our understanding of the confusion.
So this is not a ban on the sale of electronic cigarettes or a ban on the use of electronic cigarettes?
It is just a reinforcement of the ban of the use of them in public places.
That's what I thought.
Ms. Thomas Smith is here, and she's saying I'm correct. So she's here to answer any additional questions. But it's more simple than I think the gentleman thought.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Tandem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will support the ban now. I do agree there's
It's not a ban.
not a ban, but I do support the restrictions for that are parallel to our cigarette smoke restrictions. I think there's plenty of research that will be following quickly. I think the FDA needs to have more oversight, and it may be easier someday to create an ordinance that would allow, by permission, a bar or a whatever to apply for a permit for vaping if it is ultimately deemed safe and this is an attraction to a business, then fine. I think that might be a justification for doing so.
Thank you. All right, seeing no lights for further discussion and not wanting to see any, it's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 80-013, amending Title III, Chapter 14, Cigarettes and Tobacco Products, to add restrictions for use of electronic cigarettes and liquid nicotine. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes?
Aye.
Alderman Tandem?
Aye.
Alderman Grover? Alderman Rainey?
No.
Alderman Burris? Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Alderman Nguyen? Alderman Wilson? 8-1.
8-1, the motion passes.
Madam Mayor, Ordinance 105-0-13, binding referendum for the dilution of the Evanston Township. Staff submits for consideration Ordinance 105-0-13, calling for a binding referendum question to be submitted to the electors of Evanston Township to vote on whether to dissolve Evanston Township. This ordinance was introduced on September 23, 2013. And the item was held on October 28, 2013. Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance. City Manager, did you wish to speak to this?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, a couple of things. First of all, there was some question regarding the wording of the initiative. Alderman Wilson and the city attorney have met, and we would like to amend the proposed ordinance to change the question. And we would amend it as follows so that the question would now read, shall the township organization be discontinued and abolished in Evanston Township? So we would offer that as an amendment.
I would move to make that amendment.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to amend it as the city manager just outlined.
Yeah, read it. I'm going to say it again.
It says,
City manager.
right now it says, shall the township organization be continued in Evanston Township? That's what it is now. The new one would say, shall the township organization be discontinued and abolished in Evanston Township? I think that's much more clear for the voters to understand what they're voting on.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson, and thank you for your work on it. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, City Clerk, please call the roll.
This is just the amendment.
Yes.
Amendment first.
Yeah. Voting on the amendment.
Alderman Holmes?
Yes. on the
Alderman
amendment.
Tandem?
Yes.
Alderman Grover? Alderman Rainey? Alderman Burris? Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Alderman Nguyen? Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. And we need a motion for the, it was moved and seconded, actually.
Right. On that's only on the language for,
Yeah.
now on the ordinance, we vote now on the
Yeah,
ordinance.
but you moved it in second.
Yes. Mhm.
So, city managers, do you want to
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The council asked that I respond to the League of Women Voters in their letter of October 1st on page 642 of your packet is my response. Is it the council's pleasure for me to walk through this or just answer questions? Madam Mayor?
Alderman Rainey.
Mr. City Manager, I read through it once, but I have some issues with it, but I'm pretty tired right now. I'm wondering if we could take this up maybe at the Rules Committee?
Given the hour and that we still have an executive session, I think that would be an excellent.
I have some issues.
Certainly. You have a Rules Committee next week. We'd be happy to add it to that agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we are going to vote. So it's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 105-013 for a binding referendum for dissolution of Evanston Township. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Holmes?
No.
Alderman Tendem?
Aye.
Alderman Grover?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Burris?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Alderman Nguyen? Alderman Wilson? 7-2.
7-2, the motion passes. And that brings us to call of the wards. Alderman Holmes?
No report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Tendem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me. This is awkward. I'd like to just do a shout out to our streets and sanitation staff, Director Robinson, and especially Mr. Mayworm. There was an incident in the 6th Ward. There's a situation where there's a severely handicapped young girl, who is enjoying going to school in her neighborhood at Willard School, and we were able to help them out at the last week, middle of the week. They asked if we could do something about the fact that there are no ADA ramps at the end of the sidewalks on their block, which is her route to school. Within probably 24 hours, we had people out there, staff out there, creating these ramps. When the resident came home with the young woman in the car, they actually went up to her and said, "Is that so-and-so in there? We heard, we're doing this for her." One of their wives had worked with this young girl at Cherry School, and it was just a real heartwarming story. And I think it needs to be said, and hopefully it will be said more, that our staff is very, very capable and often does these incredibly good deeds that often go unsaid.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
A reminder of the 7th Ward meeting next Thursday, November 7th at 7 o'clock at the Ecology Center.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Burris? Thank you. Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to thank everyone for the final layer of asphalt going down on Davis Street. It's going to hit the 1st Ward tomorrow, hopefully, hit the 4th Ward this afternoon, and that was fabulous. So I want to encourage everyone to enjoy the fresh air and the smooth drive down Davis Street.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite? Thank you. Alderman Nguyen? All right. Alderman Wilson?
Fourth Ward meeting, November 6th, 7 p.m. at the McGaw YMCA.
Thank you. And do you have a motion for us?
I do. Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding personnel, real estate, and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C1, C5, C6, and C21.
Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.